This information is for educational purposes and does not constitute medical advice. Speak to your medical provider before making any changes to your care.
Hey, you guys are popping our cherries. This is our first time.
How appropriate.
Yeah. So, ladies, today is you're gonna ask us anything, whatever you want. LS questions, questions specifically for Jaclyn. Hopefully, you've heard her story, and she's an inspiration, and you want to ask her how you do that. And she can get more in depth with you.
Okay,
Yes.
so the biopsy tomorrow, you already have LS, so I'm assuming for cancer. Okay. That would make sense.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that? Are you nervous? Have you had a biopsy before? Yeah, I agree, Sally. Usually they tell you why they're biopsying, but you know what? Like some doctors are terrible and don't tell you anything before. Well, I was diagnosed by my general physician, and then she sent me for a referral to a gynecologist. The referral was 9 months long, and so I came back after a month crying because I just had no idea what was going on with me. And so she was like, let's see if we can get you to a different specialist sooner. And she referred me to like this quick referral place. I got in a week later. I went in and I assumed, because everything I read said with LS, they biopsy you. So I assumed that I was going in for a biopsy. Oh no, I didn't. And I was crying because I was so scared of having this biopsy. I thought, like, I already feel so terrible down there. Like, this is going to kill. And he barely explained a thing. He listened to my history, told me to get on the table, like literally was like, hey, get on the table, take your pants off. And I was like, okay. And then I thought he was going to biopsy me. Instead, he just put a speculum in and did a pap smear. And it was so aggressive that I like tore, and like again, like explaining, they should tell you why they're biopsying you. They should tell you, I'm going to put a speculum in you. We're going to do a pap smear. They ideally should walk you through every step of what you're doing, but unfortunately, that's not always the case, sadly.
Yes, definitely. Unfortunately, not the case. Amy said it's on her breast, and she says, I'm okay. Just waiting is hard, and stress is making symptoms flare. Yes, stress is the companion, and LS is best friend. And I don't want to use anything to possibly mess up the results. I feel you. You got one more day, Mama.
I hate waiting. Waiting is the worst part for me. Once I get there and it's done. But the waiting is what eats at me. And then waiting for the results. There's two different waitings.
Yes. So thank you, everybody who's coming in. Just type in your questions, LS questions, any questions you have specifically for Jaclyn or myself, regarding her story, my story, anything you want to know. Hit us up. So, Salat says,
There you go.
Okay, there we go. I was just about to read her comment. Now I lost it. Salat says, first biopsy in dermatologist's office didn't heal. An oncology surgeon cut it out and sutured it. Ooh. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Oh my God. I know with LS, whenever we tear and things like that, it can take some time for us to heal. And, especially if we're using clobetasol, it automatically slows healing time, which is good when we are like, we have scarring that tears open, and we don't want it to scar again. But it's not good when, we have stitches or something like that we want to heal. But you kind of need to keep using it. So yeah, it's a little bit of catch 22 there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Robin
asked, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, what steroids is everyone being prescribed? I've only been never prescribed one, which is clobetasol. Interestingly, I found out through the podcast that the gold standard is clobetasol ointment, which I've never been prescribed. I've had the cream since day one. I chatted with Kathy. I've debated being like, should I ask for the ointment? Should I not? Like, for me, I've been in remission for a while now, so I think I'm just kind of like, well, just if it ain't broke, don't fix it,
Yep.
I don't seem to have any reaction to it, so that's what I use right now. And I know Kathy uses a different steroid than I do.
Yeah, I was originally prescribed clobetasol as well, but my insurance wouldn't cover it without a written prior approval. But they would give me halobetasol, and originally I was given the cream as well, and I used the halobetasol cream, and then I used the clobetasol cream, and then when I went back for my refill, I asked for the ointment. I got both of them, the clobetasol and the halobetasol ointment, but I didn't like the clobetasol ointment. I didn't like the texture, and when I used it, I felt like a slight burning. And so I went to the halobetasol, and I love it. It's very much like a lotion. Like I say it's like a Nivea kind of lotion texture, kind of milky like that. And I love it. So I use halobetasol.
Yeah, Amy says she uses the ointment and loves it. A lot of people love the ointment. I think a lot of people find the ointment more soothing than the cream seems to be the case.
Yeah, definitely. So Chris, let me scroll back up to Chris says she's newly diagnosed. She got a second opinion from a dermatologist and confirmed LS. No scar tissue or abnormal looking skin. Lots of inflammation though. Purple labius. Laugh out loud. Hoping the ointment works soon. Yeah. So hopefully you guys have all listened to my episode that I did with Dr. Jill Kraft, and she went over how to use your steroid properly, because it makes a huge difference in how we feel. I started doing it, it's going on 5 months now, and I haven't had any symptoms since. It's truly been amazing.
But it can take time.
Yeah.
And it depends on what your starting point is too, right? Because I think like an interesting thing is that you had already been using the steroids for a while.
Yes.
So it's not like it was brand new to
brand
your
new
system.
Exactly.
And like, because I know when I first started using the steroids, it took time. It probably did take about 3 months to say like, there's a big difference. And then another couple months to be like, oh, things are much better. And I think that's because I went like a decade undiagnosed, right? So when they finally got the steroids, my vulva was just super angry at everything. So I think it took some time to settle, but they do really help. They really help. I can't imagine a life without clobetasol. When I travel, I have like mini containers of it. I bring it like everywhere with me just in case I end up like staying the night somewhere. I'm like, no, I gotta have my clobetasol then. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna just say hi to Mika. Hi, Jane. Hi, Chris. I see you guys just came in. Jane is coming in from Russia. Hello, Jane.
Oh, hi.
And she has LS and lichen planus.
Okay.
So sweetie. So truly feel for you. Now, anyone who hasn't listened to that interview, I'll give you just a quick overview of the proper way to use your steroid. You want to make sure your vulva is moist before you apply. So they say you should soak your vulva for 15 to 20 minutes. That's not always possible for us. I'm a mom, I got stuff to do, and I don't like taking baths.
Blasphemy.
So I do it after a hot shower. You want to get out, pat dry. You don't want to be bone dry. And then you want to take a pea-sized amount on your fingertip, maybe like a half of a fingertip, thereabouts. And then you want to rub it all over your vulva and on your clitoral hood, clitoris. And if you have symptoms on your anus, there as well, your perineum. And I say your clitoris and your clitoral hood and your labia minora because with LS, of course, we know it's progressive. And one of those progressions is reabsorption and labial and clitoral adhesion. So, meaning that your clitoral hood can fuse over your clitoris and your labia minora could fuse to your labia majora, or they could reabsorb back into the body. And we don't want that. So in order for that, you want to make sure that you're treating the whole area. And then you want to make sure you rub for 60 to 90 seconds. Super important. And the reason being is because you need that medicine to get all the way down into the basement membrane where the LS is. So the LS is an inflammation causing machine. That's all it does all day, 24/7, is just make inflammation. And so that medicine has to get through all those levels of inflammation, all the way down to the basement membrane, and then it can start attacking the LS. So once you do apply, you want to wait 15, 20 minutes before you apply any kind of emollient, moisturizer, barrier cream. Just wait those 15, 20 minutes, and then you are good. And then as far as a schedule, if you're just starting out or you're having like a really bad flare, you want to start doing every day, once a day, especially if you have the ointment. If you, according to Dr. Jill, if you do 2 times a day with the ointment, that's a bit much because it's more, it's
Potent.
not potent, yeah, but it's the way that the base is, it makes it more potent. Um, and it could just be too much. So once a day, especially with the ointment, you could do twice a day with the cream, but at least once a day. And then you want to do that for about 4 weeks and listen to your body. And then go down to every other day and for about 4 weeks. And then maintenance is twice a week for the rest of your life. And you want to stretch it out. So I do Monday, Thursday. Dr. Jill said some people do Sunday, Wednesday. And the reason is the clobetasol or the steroid stays in your system for 3 to 4 days. So when you're in maintenance, if you do those 3 to 4 day breaks, you're still medicated and you're still attacking the LS so that it doesn't come back. And now when I say listen to your body, so when I started using the steroid correctly, I I started off every day because before that I was just using as needed. Um, when I went to every day, I was fine for like the first 3 weeks of every day. Towards the end of the third week and beginning of the fourth week, I would start feeling like a burning sensation about 5-10 minutes after I applied the steroid. And so I took it as my body saying, okay, we're good. You don't need to be putting so much steroid on me. And I cut back. I went down to the next step. And I've been good ever since. So listen to your body. There's a researcher and very famous LS specialist called Dr. Gail Fisher. And she had a saying. She said, if it's red, step down. If it's white, step up. So look, nobody knows how even if the doctor tells you to follow this regimen and you see, okay, I am getting irritated, my vulva is red, it's too much. Go ahead and step down, because Jaclyn could go for 4 weeks. I could only go for 3. Somebody else, Jennifer, might only be able to go for 2. You got to listen to your body, because your LS may not be as aggressive as mine,
Mm-hmm.
and mine may not be as aggressive as Jaclyn's. So there's no one size fits all. You have to listen to your body. So yeah, I think I hit all the points. Did I get everything, Jaclyn?
Yeah, that's pretty much, those are the main points that you want to know.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely listen to that episode so you get more in depth, but that's just more of an overview.
So A Hunt 1221 says, I find this just so crazy. How do we all have this? How do we never know about it? And I agree. I'd never heard the word lichen sclerosus until I was diagnosed. Never heard it growing up, never heard it until then. When I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me, I'd plug my symptoms into Google and it gave me every STI, it gave me yeast infections, it gave me UTIs, it gave me anything except for lichen sclerosus. When my doctor said that, I was like, excuse me, what? Like, my mom had multiple sclerosis. Is this like part of that? Like, what the hell is this? And then after that, once I read up about it, I was like, okay. And then I was like, cool. So I'm like the only person in the world with this, because there were no faces. I had no faces to put to the word lichen sclerosus other than my own. And I went like that for probably like a year and a half, where I didn't know anybody with it. And now I know tons of people with it, and it's really, really surprising. And I know tons of people with it, and I've been talking with people that are like, oh, listening to your story, I'm starting to wonder about myself. Like, I've had symptoms like this, and my history kind of resembles yours, but doctors never said anything. So, they always tell you that lichen sclerosus is a rare disease, and I think a lot of us are starting to realize it's not so much that it's rare, it's just that it's not being diagnosed, it's not being recognized by doctors, and we're not talking about it either. There's a lot of shame about talking about our genitals, and a lot of people don't feel comfortable discussing with their friends and in the doctor's office. Like, I never told my friends, oh, I just had sex with my boyfriend and I think it tore. Is that a thing? Do you tear? Like, I never said that. I just kept that part to myself. And had I said it, somebody might have been like, that's not supposed to happen.
Right.
You shouldn't tear during sex. And maybe then I would have pressed a little harder. But because we don't talk and share these things, I assumed this was normal. I took what the doctor said. You're too small. And basically you're just too small down there. That's why. And so I normalized that. And I thought, okay, well, so I'm going to tear because I have a small vulva. So that's normal. So it's just, you start accepting these things. But I think that's important, that we start talking about it, because the more we talk, the more people's eyes open up, and that's really important to raise awareness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chris said her dermatologist told her she wasn't using enough, and she had to start by her initial 2 weeks over and apply more ointment. Yeah. Good for you. And it's making a difference already. I'm so glad. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a little bit of trial and error with the steroid for sure. Even though we have, Dr. Kraft's protocol, even though your doctor gives you one, like Kathy
Listen
said,
to your body.
LS is individual, and there is a bit of trial and error, both with respect to what steroid you end up using. Yeah, you might try a couple before you settle on one that you like, and then, how much do you apply? How often do you apply?
Yeah.
That'll change.
Yeah. Mika says, she says, I got other cream from the doctor. It's Dermovate.
Oh, Dermovate, yeah.
It's only one time monthly, but I feel sometimes an itchy and dryness and cuts. What else can I use in between? Is Dermavate a steroid? I
I
don't
think
know.
Dermavate is clobetasol. Are you in the
Okay.
UK? Because I believe that that's
Yeah. If that is, if it's clobetasol, if it might be another name for clobetasol. If it is, one time a month is nowhere near enough.
mm-mm.
You're not treating your LS. You're putting like a little Band-Aid on it, and that's why it keeps coming back.
Yeah.
You've got to be aggressive with the LS because, like I said, 24/7, this machine is making inflammation in every layer of your skin. And when that steroid fights inflammation, that's what it does. And so it's like a push and pull. Right now, if you're not treating, your vulva is just full of inflammation where the lichen sclerosus is, and that steroid has to push all of that inflammation down and get rid of it, and then get to the LS. And it's kind of like it has to stop as much inflammation as the LS is making. And if you're not using the steroid and you're just letting the lichen sclerosus just have a party down there and continue to manufacturing this inflammation, you're just going to keep having symptoms. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you have to be continuous with your steroid treatment. And that's why it's the maintenance dose is 2 times a week for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's why,
Because
and I'm in remission and I still use it. People ask me often, like, do you still use if you're in remission? Have you stopped? And I say, no, absolutely not. I still use it 2 times a week and I will continue to for a multitude of reasons. I did just Google and Dermavate is clobetasol. It's just another term
okay.
for clobetasol. So yeah, once a month that's not even enough for maintenance or remission. So
No.
I would say you probably need to consider upping that. And if you're really dry, I don't know if you use an emollient. That's something that I swear by because I am extremely dry down there. And if there's no emollient, I am not a happy camper. So that's another thing I bring with me. I was like shopping downtown once and this store sold mini containers of coconut oil, like kind of like perfect for the plane containers, like travel containers. And they were like pre-dosed. And I was like, I don't know if this is for me, but like, I bought like several and I had one in my gym bag. I had one in my purse. I brought it everywhere with me because when I feel dry, it's just so irritating and um, it doesn't help if you're trying to, if you don't want to fuse, if you're really dry and the skin is getting sticky, it makes it
Mm-hmm.
easier to fuse. So staying moist down there is really important. Sorry. I know people don't like that word. Um, keeping it fresh and supple is good down there. um, but yeah, that was a long-winded way to say that I think one time a month is not enough, not even for a maintenance. So up the dosage and find an emollient that works for you. Again, everybody's different. I love
Mm-hmm.
coconut oil. Some
Gemma
women
says she loves
hate it.
coconut oil
Yeah.
too.
Some people hate coconut oil and some people say they get yeast infections from it, but there's a ton of options out there. I have a few others that I use sometimes too.
Yeah.
Hi
So
Gemma, bye
Amy,
Gemma.
yes, hey Gemma, thank you for stopping by. Amy says, I have a question. I was diagnosed with lupus about 17 years ago, but never followed up with any doctors. I did see a rheumatologist for a while, but I was feeling okay and stopped. Um, is that one of the diseases that women have before they are diagnosed with LS? Does that make sense?
It could be, yeah. Lupus,
Yeah,
I believe, is autoimmune. So
yeah, I don't know that there's like one disease that women get before they get LS or after they get LS, but with it possibly and more than likely looking like it is an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune diseases come in multiples. So if you have one, more than likely at some point you will get another one and possibly another one. Um, so if it's an autoimmune disease, it's very possible that it's another,
mhm.
it's a cousin of the LS. It's
Aren't
an
we
autoimmune
lucky?
cousin. Yes. So like
Yeah.
this summer I got my second autoimmune diagnosis. I got
Mhm.
Sjogren's disease, and yay. So it's the gift that keeps on giving is what I call it. So yeah. So Tracy says, what if we flare every month with our periods? Restart steroids.
Mm.
So our menstrual cycle, that is something that is a mystery to me. And I think that it's this is one of the reasons that we need more studies and research that Dr. Jill is trying to get started, because they're not studying us women with of reproductive age. They're mainly studying postmenopausal women, prepubescent girls. We're stuck in the middle, and there's not a lot of attention happening with us. So there's no real study on menstruating and LS. And I can tell you this, I have heard from women who feel better only when they have their period. I have talked to women who feel only get flares at certain parts of their cycle. I have women who only get flares when they're on their period. So it's a cycle. It needs to be studied. Hopefully, if you get your LS under control, then it will stop the flares eventually. It can take anywhere from 3 to 5 months of continuous proper steroid use to get you into remission. And that's average. So it could be a little bit less, it could be a little bit more. Everybody is different. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, that
Yeah,
is
that's interesting because actually I didn't really make the connection until you were talking, but I used to find that like I would get flares when I had my period, and I used to find that everything was so much worse when I was menstruating. But I don't find that to be the case anymore, and I think that's more because I got the LS under control and into remission, and that's why it doesn't bother me as much. That's not to say that everyone that gets into remission is going to have the same experience as me, because I think um, there was a discussion with Heather Cohen, sorry,
going.
Cohen, and I believe it was with her that we were saying that there seemed to be two brackets. So there's hormones, and then there's autoimmunity. And so I just might fall more into that autoimmunity bucket, whereas other people might be more hormone triggered. And so if you fall into the hormone triggered category, then it could be the case that you're more likely to experience flares during your period versus somebody that's more in the autoimmune bucket. And you could be both, right? But there are certainly a lot of people that experience increased flares when they menstruate. But also there's a few that are like, yeah, oh my gosh, I can't wait. I can't wait for my period to get some relief. And I'm like,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking back through the comments, and Pat says about the Dermavate that once a month definitely is not enough.
Yeah.
Um, Edith, you asked once or twice a day. I'm not following what that question was for. Rewrite your question for me, and I'll get to it.
Yeah. Is that a steroid? Is that emollient?
I don't know. Um, Amy, I think we answered your question. Yes, we did. Welcome, Claire.
Hey,
We got a
Claire.
lot of new faces. Nadia, welcome. San, welcome. Sharona, welcome. Pilar, welcome. Lee, welcome. And Edith, thank you for coming out and joining us on our first live. Hopefully we're not doing too bad. Um,
We'll get better. We'll get better.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so Sheila says, I was treated for a yeast infection to no avail until I changed gynecologists and was diagnosed in 2017, then started on steroid ointment. Honey, unfortunately, that is a sad but common
Mhm.
story. Took 5 years, multiple doctors before I got diagnosed. And I had to wait until my disease progressed and I got worse symptoms before they even diagnosed me. So,
Yeah, same here. Almost a decade of, nope, you're fine. It's in your head. It's yeast. I would treat myself over the counter. I would just assume it was yeast. I'd take a yeast infection pill, nothing. And yep, same here. 10 years, and I had to lose my labia and have my clitoral hood completely fuse and have the vulva skin that was once pink go completely white for someone to be like, oh, have you always looked like this?
right,
I don't know.
right. Chris asks, is constant yeast infections common with lichen sclerosus?
Interesting. I
Um,
think it's hard to say because
yeah,
it's it's really tough to say because it's like my instinct is to say yes, but then it's like, but how many of those yeast infection cases are actually yeast infections? Like
right.
looking back, I was
I've
diagnosed
never
in
had
my
one.
teens. I think I've had two, and I say that because there was like actual discharge, as there usually is with a yeast infection, and the other times it was just chronic itching. And they told me, oh, well, you're because I was swimmer growing up, and they just told me it's because you're, always swimming in the pool, and that's how you get yeast infections. And so I was diagnosed with yeast infections all the time. Looking back, I don't think that was the case. So I think it's really hard to tell because I don't think doctors take the time to figure out whether or not we're actually dealing with yeast. I don't think they're
Mm-hmm.
testing. I think they're going more off of verbal symptoms and then just saying it's yeast. And so I'd actually be really curious, like how many of us are, really, do we actually, are we more prone to yeast infections? Are they even yeast infections? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Now, I know Dr. Jill in our interview, she mentioned that if you overuse the steroid,
Mm,
the clobetasol, you can get yeast infections. You are prone to yeast infections, but she said it's not like a real yeast infection. It's
right.
more like a
Like a
baby. She
rash.
called it a baby yeast infection. So do be mindful of that you're not using too much of your steroid. And then Manuela says, what is the most important part of the therapy except medicine? Do you also see a psychotherapist or a sexual therapist, pelvic floor training? And so, how to deal with it? Oh, that's a great question. I am all about the team. Okay, so LS, we've established is individualized. Your treatment plan is also going to be individualized. And part of that is your team. So dependent on um, what your aims are, different people are going to be part of your team. So definitely you need a great doctor, or at least a good doctor. If you can't get a great doctor, because they are they're far and few between, but um, you need a good doctor, someone who knows what they're doing, someone who's up on the current research, because the research has changed. Even in the last, I don't even go back like more than 6 years and look at their research because it's irrelevant now. It's constantly changing because they're constantly learning about LS and they're looking at different things. So, someone who's up on the current research, if your doctor tells you, oh, lichen sclerosus thins your skin, get a new doctor because they're not up on the research. That's old, plain. That's been debunked. Um, you want to you definitely want to have someone to talk to about your feelings, whether it's around sex, whether it's around self-esteem, whether it's around just this new thing that you have to deal with in your life that's not going to go away, and how you acclimate to having a chronic illness for the rest of your life. Now that is a change that you definitely should talk to somebody. If sex is something that is painful and something, and you're in a relationship and you want to work towards having sex, and now you're having negative thoughts and things like that around your sexuality, around being fulfilling that part of your relationship, then you get a sex therapist. Find that person that you are comfortable with, that you can have these conversations with. And if you're in a relationship, it may be a good idea to involve them into some of those in those conversations, so that your partner knows exactly how you feel, and you can talk to about your partner has a space to talk as well. Because when you're in a relationship, LS doesn't just happen to us, it happens to our relationship. Your partner is going through things just like you're going through things, even though they may not have the physical symptoms. They love you, they're seeing you going through this, they don't want you to be pain, they don't want you to be in pain, they don't want you to be suffering. And sometimes they feel like they can't help, and they feel helpless, and maybe they don't know how to, and maybe you don't have the words to tell them how to help you. Maybe that middle person is there to help you communicate that and help you grow in this together. A lot of resentment and negative feelings come from not communicating with your partner, them not understanding, them not talking to you, them not believing you. And you don't want that to start festering and wearing away at your relationship. So maybe a marriage therapist might be a counselor or something like that might be part of your team. And pelvic floor physical therapy. Definitely recommend pelvic floor physical therapy, even if sex is not something that you want in your future. But definitely, if sex is something you want in your future, you want to have a pelvic floor physical therapist. We hold a lot of tension and stress and it concentrated into our pelvises when we have illnesses like lichen sclerosus. And pelvic floor physical therapists, there's going to be an episode coming out in July with an amazing pelvic floor physical therapist, and I want to touch on this on multiple different facets, that they can help us so much that I had no clue, no idea how much pelvic floor physical therapy can help us. And so even if it's just helping to release that tension, you might have noticed, I know I did, I need to go to the bathroom all the damn time now. And part of that I'm finding out is because my pelvic floor is so tight, and it's causing me to have urinary issues. And so no, not even, I don't have the pain with sex, but I'm going to see a pelvic floor physical therapist to help me with my urinary issues. And and part of that, even though they're not working specifically on the skin to heal that, part of that is because of that tension, because I'm concentrating on that area of my body. But if you have adhesions, labial adhesions, clitoral adhesions, they can help unfuse you. And if someone had a question about unfusing that I'm going to get to, pelvic floor physical therapists, they can work with you on unfusing those adhesions. So when I learned that, that was like, oh, you know, because my clitoral hood, it fused over, and you know, I'd like to, I have a little hole there now again, which I'm super happy about, but I'd like her to be free, frequently. So if I can go to PT and get that done, why not? I know Jaclyn is a huge proponent of
Yeah.
physical therapy.
Oh yeah. I mean, I built myself a whole team right away. I went and got a sex therapist, I got a pelvic floor physiotherapist, I had my doctor, my gynecologist, eventually I found Kathy. I made sure that all of my bases were covered because sex was something that was really important to me. I valued being able to have sex with my husband, and my relationship was important, so I wanted that addressed. I also had severe body dysmorphia with respect to my vulva, so I needed to work on that with my sex therapist. And pelvic floor physiotherapy, oh my gosh, yes, if you can, go do it. It's amazing for all the reasons Kathy mentioned. And another thing that's really nice about pelvic floor physiotherapy, at least in my experience, is a good pelvic floor physiotherapist is going to focus on the mind-body connection. So it's not just about the physical. They're going to give you a lot of tools to de-stress. And that in and of itself is helpful, because if your muscles are clenched, your body is kind of in a stress mode. And the more we can relax and open and create space, the more we engage the parasympathetic nervous system, the more our body calms down. And everybody knows that LS and stress are not good friends. So anything that you can do that help bring the stress down, go for it. Definitely.
Mhm.
And yeah, like Kathy said, know your goals. What's important to you? Because we're not going to all have the same goals. And then depending on what those goals are, set out to find somebody, and don't settle. If your pelvic physiotherapist is not a good fit, if they say something, if they say what's LS, if they tell you, like they told somebody in our group, they said LS is not a big deal. If they tell you that, you walk out. You don't settle for that.
Next.
Yep,
Thank you. Next. Say Ariana
exactly.
stop.
Don't settle for your doctors, for your therapists. Find somebody that's
Nobody.
good for you. You are not stuck with who you end up with.
Yes. Yes.
Always
Absolutely.
change.
Absolutely.
Oh, so it's
Mika
Grace from
said,
Kenya.
yes. Hi,
Hi, Grace.
Grace. Thank
Very
you
cool.
for joining us. Um, Mika says she was using the clobetasol 2 times a week and was doing really good, and then the doctor changed, so now she's suffering again. Yeah, that's why I'm saying there's two papers that every doctor that treats us should be up on, and one of them is Dr. Jill and Dr. Goldstein, Dr. Jill Krapp and Dr. Andrew Goldstein, and Leah Mitchell. There was some of the researchers on that paper. Is Lichen Sclerosus Current Perspectives. You print it out, get the link, do whatever you got to do. Make sure your doctor has read that research. Is super important. And then there's another one. If they're telling you not to use that your steroid's going to thin your skin, fake news. If they're
Set up.
telling you, yeah, if they're telling you you don't need to keep using the clobetasol or your steroid for maintenance, fake news. Get you another doctor. Now, yes, there are some doctors that don't believe it. For me, prevention is key. If all I have to do is use a 2 pea size amount of steroid a week to prevent the progression to possible vulvar cancer, to prevent this LS from progressing worse, taking my labia minora, fusing me over, the itching, all of those things, if that's all I got to do, I'm doing it. It's not enough to harm us. It's not. It's been studied for, what is it, 50 years now?
Over that,
Yes,
I
50
think.
years. She said 1970. So we're in 2020. Yeah, they started studying steroids for LS in 1970. It's been 50 years. It is the gold standard. Everything they throw at it, the steroids it comes out on top. So yeah, look for that paper, and
And a good
then
doctor will read it. A good doctor
yes,
will say, I'm not very familiar with LS, but thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm going to do the reading. That's also, we can't expect doctors, especially a general practitioner, to be up on every single disease
everything
and be
right.
perfect. But a good doctor will check their ego at the door, and they will not be offended if you come to them with these papers.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. A good doctor will answer all of your questions. They will not feel like you're encroaching on them when you bring them your research. This is what
They'll see you as
I'm
a
talking
team
about as
member.
a team. A
Yeah.
team. You are the leader of your team. So you need to be up on your research. You need to be up on what is going on so that when the specialist, which is your doctor, tells you something and it doesn't quite sound right, you know, wait a minute. I need to research that a little bit more because that don't sound right to me. And if you question it, your team member shouldn't get an attitude. They shouldn't feel like, oh, what are you questioning me? Who the hell are you? I'm your team leader, bitch. I'm the one paying you. That's who I am. We pay the doctors. They work for us. And so they need to give us the quality of care that we are paying for. Okay, I'm gonna step down off my soapbox. Don't get me started. You know me.
No, but you're right. You're right.
I'm gonna get hype up in here.
I collaborate with my doctors. That's how I like to see it. It's a collaboration. I'll come in and be like, hey, what about this? And sometimes they're like, yeah. Or, I kind of get that. How about we make it into this? I'm going to create a compound based on what you brought up or something like that. Collaborate with your doctors.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, I want to make sure everybody knows we have our virtual meetup on Saturday between 2 and 4 p.m. and 7 and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to continue the conversation and we do it face to face or virtually, of course, you can go to lssupport.net/connect. And you just put in your name, your email address, and I will send you all the information that you need to get onto the platform when the time comes. That's lssupport.net/connect. All right.
Yep. You can ask all your questions. Tell us how you were diagnosed, what you're struggling with, anything you want to talk about. We just let it all out. It's a free, safe space. No such thing as TMI.
And we have fun. We laugh, we joke. So, yeah. All right. So I appreciate Jaclyn. I appreciate you coming out here and joining me for this hour.
I'm glad to be the one that broke your and my own.
My cherry. We broke each other's cherry.
There you go. There you go.
We got to do this again. This was fun. This was fun. All right, ladies, thank you for joining. I love you guys. Hopefully we'll see some of you guys on Saturday.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much.